empowered space. So here at the Comeback Conversations, or if you're part of the Comeback Collective Circle, we're going to be dealing a lot with the basis point of understanding and recognizing ontology. Ontology is a sacred study of becoming, a journey into the philosophical and spiritual studies of beingness. Who are you being? Exploring who you are as the foundation for profound transformation and comeback. Of course, by myself. And as you can see by the picture on this title slide, it's about generating your own inner peace. See, all this stuff that's happening around us is going to continue to happen. That doesn't mean that you need to move fearfully. Believe you me, everything that we're sharing today or we're talking about, it's about being powerful still in that space, emanating that energy, being responsible enough to say, wait a minute, you're not going to silence me or position me as if I'm some second-class citizen. But when you're in the space of becoming, you also need those attributes and how to work with that. So regardless of chaos may be around you, you still have the resonant power within you to have a peaceful space. What is ontology? And as you can see by the image here, we have the young lady looking at in the mirrors, talking about believing yourself, and that's part of it. The study of being. Ontology examines beingness, not what you do, but who you are as you do it. And that's so important. That's why we started talking about the initial conversation today about Laura Loomer and Jasmine Crockett. See, Laura Loomer is in a space where her beingness is that she's taking advantage of what we would consider white privilege, where she felt initially that she can say something so outlandish and disrespectful to a Black woman, like as if it was just going to be like, oh, so what I call her a ghetto Black bee. I'm like, no, 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 no. And then when she caught the heat, she caught the major backlash from it, it was like, oh wait a minute. Oh, no, 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 we're not taking this. No, y'all are getting too comfortable now. Now see you letting this orange man in the White House might end up putting you out there that you end up catching a brick. Not that's figuratively. I want to hear get me banned or in trouble or some sort of dialogue. We have the right to express ourselves. It's just what it is. You can't say stuff. That's the same way when we talked about Charlie Kirk. No, we're gonna talk about that was wrong for him to be murdered, but we can't sit here and say this man didn't create divisiveness, and now all of a sudden, just because he was murdered, not assassinated, because he was murdered, now all of a sudden everyone has to act as if he was the best thing since sliced bread. For who? The way you live does not minimize how you died. Or we can't use how you died to all of a sudden overshoot all the negativity that you did. So we have to understand that study of beingness, and especially in this time frame. And that's why I know that this is the major part of how we're building up this community. We have to understand who we are being, especially during this time. Being precedes behavior. In visionary and coaching spaces, transformation starts with identity, not actions. And that's why the image of the woman in the mirror, or it could have been a young man in the mirror, or whoever it is in the mirror, is so important. What are you saying to yourself? How are you strategizing? How you're generating that inner subconscious state? Your being is not your outward space. Your being is stuff, yo, what do I say to myself? And that goes to the essential question. Who am I being right now? Because once you can answer that question for yourself, this question unlocks an authentic transformational appointment with yourself, not for me, not for your family members, not for those things that you think is outside of you. It starts with you. And that's where I think certain far right, far left, wherever it is, certain extremism that comes into play because they want people separated. It's easy to conquer people if you can keep them separated. But if you start moving in the spaces with other like minds and starts to be in those spaces of community, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't pick that one off. Or we attempt to do something to that person, there may be some backlash. Oh, no, don't mess with that one. That one got an organization or at least a community behind them that's not having it. Now it's like you make someone think twice before they want to, jump big and bad. because they have a podcast or on the social media streets. Why ontology matters in this comeback, in this community, in this collective. You can't hear what you pretend not to be. And as you can see by the imagery, you're seeing the individual breaking through the glass, and we're all breaking through our respective glasses. It's still a shame that women still are fighting for equal rights, but because and that's all part of the plan. And we're not even going to talk about black males, even though we're starting to catch up to our wonderful black women when it comes to education. But at the same time, there's so many barriers that sometimes come into play. And those barriers get exacerbated when we have the infighting amongst each other. That's what helps to keep the fragmentation. Those where the healing spaces start to have to come into play. Because if we're not being truthful to each other, we're not allowing ourselves to hear, but like, yo, some of us as black men have done some distasteful things. Some of us as black women have done some distasteful things. We have to really sit here and look at each other and be like, yo, okay, now let's have conversations about this, bring it to a space of ontological work, and now we can start to say, yo, okay, we got to treat each other better. Not saying one has to do it and the other one just gets no. We all have to do it better. And that's why this community is about being inclusivity and not exclusivity. So we have to disrupt the superficial methods. Ontology cuts through surface level self-help to address the root of transformation. The root of transformation sometimes is to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I the problem? Am I the problem? And if the answer might be yes, then it's like, okay, now you're ready for true transformation. Now it's like, okay, I'm willing to look myself in the face and say, yo, I may be part of the problem. So that means I'm looking for the solution. I'm ready to break out and crash through those things because remember, the glass was clear, as you can see in the image. So it's not like a glass that you can tell. Sometimes we don't even know certain ceilings or certain barriers are around us that we just have to bust through. And yeah, maybe a little discomfort, but it's going to be helpful as we grow. The source of everything. Being is where healing, listening, leadership, and love originate from within. Wherever your being starts from inside of you, it's an inside work. If you're not willing to do the inside work, everything outside of you might be nice, and those are great masks. But as we get to the last point, comeback work begins with ontological truth telling, facing who you really are beneath the mask. And we all have to play those masks. Sometimes we have to do the double talk. Sometimes people will say, I got your slang language. And actually, that's part of double talk. Oh, sometimes I can't get with y'all meeting when y'all get together and y'all have conversations. Or some of us, from Caribbean descent, we start having our patois, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? It's like, yeah, we understand each other. Are you as an individual who may not necessarily know how we're flowing with each other from that cultural standpoint, do you feel that's a problem? Or is it really empowering and you're scared of that empowerment because now we have something that connects us? We have something that we can come back to that gives us a sense of being. Any thoughts before I go on to the next slide? Excellent. Ontological coaching versus transactional coaching. There's a lot of coaching out there that's very transactional. I'm not here to say one is better than the other, but there are some differences. Be before you build. Every single thing in your space. If you're not being it before you build, that means you're doing it just for the dollar. And if you're doing it for just the dollar, that means it's going to be very fleeting. It's not sustainable because that means there's something else that comes with the attention that can get your focus away from what it is that you claim that you like to do, but you're only doing it for the dollars. Then of course, you become a very new sense of hireling. I was going to say another word, but I'm going to be respectful. But you become a new space of hireling. because that means you're just following the money. And sometimes those are the individuals that will fall for anything because they're after the dollar. Instead of recognizing, will this impact my community? I mean, there's other opportunities out there that will allow me to develop. Or am I just so thinking about myself or whatever identity that I'm creating that I'm just going to, I'm just there for the dollars. And everyone has that choice in that particular master. Because then we have the transactional approach. How can I fix this? Focuses on external solutions and quick fixes. How can I? Come on. We got to get this done. Whoa, why are we snapping our fingers? What? Some of this stuff's going to take work. We got 400 years. We can go all the way back to 1619 if you're talking about this particular hemisphere and continent in regards to some of the things that happened to those of us of African descent. And just because, some of us are West Indian or some of us are from different countries or, here in the United States, no, it's just that we're dropped off in different spaces. We have some of the same ontological stuff, baggage that's in the background. And sometimes we have to get to that space. We're like, yo, we got to deal with that. Because some of that stuff has been perpetuated through the generations, which leads to number 2, ontological approach. What kind of person created this? And that's why it's about learning the systems around you. It addresses identity and being at the core. Sometimes we could be in a space not recognizing that you may do something that you have been trained to do or positioned to do. And as the subthought says on the bottom, the comeback is not an action, it's a transformation in identity. Results shift when being shifts. So you're looking for the best results? How are you handling yourself? How are you handling you? You see, how you handle you is going to be how you handle people around you. Do you love yourself enough to say, you know what, I don't like when people talk to me like that? So if you don't like to be talked to in a particular way, that means you become a little bit more mindful to recognize I can't talk to people that type of way. Because in your beingness, you're generating a space. And then when you start to recognize, wait a minute, some of these actions, I'm just not down for it anymore. You start to recognize, then you start to shift. Not that you're acting like you're better than someone. Not that you're acting as if you're not from the hood and all this other stuff that sometimes will be thrown out and be part of a discussion, but you're recognizing that's what made me or part of the foundation that makes you who you are. And you should never negate your beginnings because your beginning is your beginning. And we all have one. Any thoughts before we move on? Excellent. And if you have any questions, please, because that's the main reason why I decided to go back and we're going to be breaking down all these concepts as we keep going through this. So as reminders, as, building blocks, so we're not just rushing through stuff and just inundating you with information, but actually giving you the substance so we really get it.
I
Sometimes,
have a question.
please, go ahead.
So going back to the previous slide, so the what was it? Transactional is like hustle culture.
Mm,
And I can say that being of a Caribbean background, that is what was, using our words again, embedded. That's what was modeled. You have to do that. You have to have a job, maybe 2 or 3, so
mm,
that when you're 85, you can relax.
mm.
So what would be the opposite? Is the ontological approach just trying to be more productive, or what
I,
would that be?
I would say the ontological approach, and that's a great question, Nicole. The ontological approach starts to help with the rewiring. See, we
Right.
all wired like that, like you're saying. I came from a Jamaican background where, my father worked and he did livery drive, he did gypsy cab. It was back in the day, you called it gypsy cab drive, way before Uber. Gypsy cab driving. I remember sometimes being able to roll with him at night, and those are some of those great evenings where I'm sitting up in the front seat way before that you had to have seatbelts on. They were mandated. And you're sitting up in the front seat and your pops is picking up fares, even though he shouldn't be. You throw that little livery sticker in the front and pick up fares here and there. Or, some of us who know about Brooklyn, Utica, Remington, Utica, Remington, and all the great stuff back in the day and stuff like that. And that hustle culture was, as you said, which is very true, was intimately embedded. You have a side, or we can go back to like when Living Color did this skit about Amon. And they talked about the son being lazy, only having 8 jobs. And it was like, there was that one episode when they skit where it was like the father was the pilot, the co-pilot, the head chef, and all this other stuff on the plane. Like, yo, how you gonna do all it? And we can laugh at it because it was so true. It's like, yo, it's like mom or dad or elder or auntie or uncle's like, how many jobs you got? Well, I'm gonna have my full-time job and then maybe get my 5-day a week part-time job and then me do something on the weekends. It's like, wait a minute. Now think about that. It was so embedded that even though from that transactional approach, you might be getting resources in, but you're breaking down the body. You're doing so much and you're not giving. Rest is something, even from a spiritual aspect, rest is something that is earned. You deserve rest. We as people of African deserve rest. Rest is actually good. To release that mental weight, or sometimes to decompress, or sometimes just to Netflix and chill, not making you be lazy. If you're Netflix and chill 7 days out of the week, that's a problem. But all of a sudden, if you put in 5 or 6 days and you're an entrepreneur, you're pursuing certain things and things of that nature, and you feel like one day that you may eat a little ice cream and enjoy a movie, and people are going to look at you like something's wrong with you. No, you take that movie and hopefully you don't eat the whole pint of ice. Well, it used to be a pint. Well, whatever ounces of ice cream is in the cup, and enjoy yourself. Moving that ontological space is like, wait a minute. Rest is a part of this. I'm not here to have 50 jobs. I'm not here to be in this overstimulation where it's like, okay, you're getting all this and you're not recognizing that you're getting taxed at a higher bracket. Because regardless of all these separate little jobs, the government is still going to get their stuff off the top. So if you got 2, 3, 4 jobs, or if you like these days with the gig culture, you're Uber eating or you're doing Uber or you're doing the DoorDash or you're doing the Instacart and then you got your full-time job and then you got a part-time gig over here and just that. It's like, well, when do you rest? When do you rest? When do you allow the body to even get a checkup? That means, are you aligned with what the things that you're putting into your body? Do you have the necessary medical or health standards that allow you to say, yo, let me be mindful because I'm doing all these jobs. I'm always grabbing fast food or I'm always grabbing a bunch of carbs and this, that, and the third, and not recognizing that stuff builds over time. That's why diabetes and high blood pressure and all these things that we can minimize in our community become so prevalent. So yes, we were embedded to be transactional, and that's also systemic. Because the more and more you do that, the more and more you stay as a consumer. Because you start to notice as you get closer and closer to the top, the people who have more are not working as hard as the people who don't have. Gotta think about that. And why is that? And they're living better, living longer, taking care of themselves. Probably are mandated to really take care of themselves, watch their numbers, check their blood work, all these different things. But the people down here that feel that we're embedded to have 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs, regardless if you're African, Caribbean, or even American, to make ends meet, and then to go out there to consume, now go back into the system as a consumer, not as an owner, not as a creator, not as in developing the possibility to have that next big thing where you can create that atmosphere of generational wealth. So they keep you in a transactional approach. It's all systemic. So the ontological approach is about rewiring and reworking so we can address, not to make it wrong, and not saying that our forefathers and how it was embedded in them, it wasn't the right way. but we understand why it was positioned that way. So it's not even to look at them that they were wrong. They just dealt with what they can deal with. But when you can do better, then you do better. And I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you.
You're welcome. The ontological domains, the three portals of being. We have language. You speak your worlds into being through the words you choose. What am I authoring in speech? Proverbs 18:21. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. You speak it. That's why any I am statements that are floating around you, make sure you don't affirm any negatives or any detrimental spaces or anything that seems to be minimizing, because the subconscious does not take a joke. That's part of your being. That's part of your self-talk. That's part of how you're developing your self-esteem. So when you recognize that, it's like, oh, I have to be responsible. Yes, you do. Or at times recognizing that people are saying those things around you, you're like, I'm not entertaining that. I'm not even engaging with it. Because sometimes you can be pulled into something because people want to pull you into their stuff. And then, regardless if you start to have a much more sense and sensibility about yourself, you're starting to recognize, nah, I'm not doing that. Sometimes it's better to stay silent. A wise person knows how to be quiet. People can chatter, like I shared today in the respective groups. You have to know the difference. Not everything has to be always chatter. Like, yo, for real? There's a point of expressing yourself where there's a point and it can stimulate a lively debate, and those are wonderful. But just and it becomes no. There's a lot of wisdom when you have the ability to be like, nah, we can step back. Learning how to use my language, when to appropriately use that language, shows how much confidence and power that you have within yourself. Your body. Posture reflects possibility or protection in every moment. What am I embodying? That's like you entering a room and your head is down, not looking people in the face, or you're feeling nervous about, you know, I don't want to rock the boat. What do you think? All great inventions and all things that have the possibility to help others are all disturbances. You have to be a disruptor. If you're not willing to be a disruptor, that means you're willing to be common. If you're willing to be common, that means you're willing to be average. What is the purpose of being average when you have the extreme possibility of being as powerful as you so choose to be? Average doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. I don't desire for anyone around me to be average. Then what are we doing this for? Just to be like, oh, we talked and we threw a couple of slides up? No, this is about implementation as well, being in action, which leads to the last part, emotion. Your moods are a structure of being, not just feelings. What mood am I managing? And let me be the first one to reiterate. Sometimes we go through this thing and thinking that we don't have different moods. We all have different moods. Those are the things that make us human. Moods are part of the process. Not every day is going to be so glorious and sunshine, you're throwing up the air and everything is always smiley. There may be days you may have a frown on your face. That does not mean that you're making the mood the paramount of who you are. You're something disturbed you. Okay. You deal with the moment and then you keep pushing. You had a mood. Yeah, I had a mood. I was very moody about that. Yeah, of course. It's like anybody else. Anyone who has some common sense, and especially if you have deductive reasoning or critical thinking, you will have different moods. You may hear something that you don't like. Wait a minute. Oh, I ain't like that. Okay, let me process that. I ain't really rocking out with that. This and oh my God, you're so moody. No, it's not that I'm moody. I'm processing the situation and I have that right. The same way you have that right. So as we're moving through these ontological domains, and we're recognizing who we are and how powerful we can be, we're starting to understand that, yes, you may be in some different moods. You don't need to be stuck in those moods or allow those moods to restructure who you are as an individual. But if you don't like something and you taking a moment to say, yo, I really don't rock out with that, and yo, give me a second. My God, you're moody. Okay, then I'm moody. Sometimes it's easier to deal with someone who desires for argument or contention instead of recognizing, oh, okay, I'm not wasting my energy. And you always have that choice from an ontological space. You always have that choice that allows you to resonate in your power.